I'm a mother, grandmother, and I was a caregiver helping my son through almost 35 years of a cruel, debilitating, invisible illness, a disease of the brain. School was very difficult for him. He later, in the 7th grade, was diagnosed dyslexia, and he began to stutter. He had always had sleep problems, reversing night and day. He would be awake all night and sleep during the day and fall asleep in class. Sometimes a neighbor would call and say, "Ted, walking to school, I see him curled up under a tree sleeping." I can look at his class pictures and I can see in his eyes he's sedated. I think he lost a lot of self-esteem. He became withdrawn at school. And then the signs of paranoia appeared early. He exhibited those early. I remember taking the training wheels off his bike on a slight grade in front of the house, and he wobbled and he fell. And when he was lying there, he turned to me in such a non-childlike voice and glared and said, "You're trying to kill me." And that was chilling. And he walked by me, went into the house, glared at me. That was a biomarker. That was a symptom. And the first psychotic break was in his senior year in final exams. He explosively said, "The evil spirits are after me. I have to get out of here." He left running, terrified, and the police captured him. He was taken, straitjacketed, into a padded cell with a urine-soaked, stained mattress. And in the melee, he was jabbed with a huge jolt of Thorazine. So that was the first psychotic break. They call it the revolving door, and that's began his descent. Well, I was going through the pictures, and I was looking at our happy trips, our happy times in our boat, wonderful memories of that in Europe, the Keys. And then I looked at a picture of Ted when he came out of the hospital. Heartbreaking. He was misdiagnosed as a manic depressive, where it was so evident he was a paranoid schizophrenic. Ted was finally taken before the judge in St. Croix and court ordered to see a psychiatrist 3 times a week, and to, at the psychiatrist's visit, to receive an injection of a much kinder antipsychotic, Prolixin, every 2 weeks. And miracle of miracles, he was stabilized for 7 years. And in 1980, we moved north to Florida. We didn't have the support of a court order. So Ted again began to refuse the oral medication, refused to see a psychiatrist, and that began his slide back into the revolving door, which was so debilitating. each encounter with the police and the sheriff's department, the trauma of it just built up more and more stress and increased the paranoia fears. Finally, Ted reached the end of the line in the state hospital. And that was a warehouse. And that's when we gave up hope. And the most heartbreaking thing in all the Baker Acts that I've been through, seems like hundreds, is when they handcuff him and take him away. And he always said, I didn't do anything wrong. Sorry. And he never did. He never hurt anyone. He never stole anything. He was just sick. After 2.5 years, he was stabilized enough that he went into an assisted living facility. He had an angel who owned the assisted living facility, and she saw Ted through probably the last 3 years of his life until he had a seizure. And he was taken to the hospital. They gave him an anti-drug seizure medication, which threw him into a coma. It was a horrible ending. It took many years for the illness to take over his life. And this is why my passion, my mission is, if Ted had been diagnosed correctly, which he would have been today. You've seen the many phases of the illness. You've seen the deterioration and the progression of the illness. This doesn't have to happen today. Suncoast Mental Health Center has amazing services for children today, adolescents, referrals from the schools. The therapists are passionate. It's a team effort, and they can intervene, they can treat, they can aid the child or adolescent to understand their illness, take responsibility for it, and to lead somewhat of a productive life. It can save a life. His memorial, it said, "Peace at last." The peace he found was not while he was living. He never had peace. Death gave him that peace. It's too late for Ted, but not for the children, the adolescents, and the adults suffering from mental illness today. There is help for them, and we can't do it without your help.